Hello, everyone, and welcome to our October workshop for Carpal Tunnel Syndrome. My name is Sherilyn Powson, and I'm on staff and outreach coordinator. Tonight, we have the privilege of having a speaker. Her name is Mara Concordia. She is the CEO and owner of the Peaceful Spirit Massage and Wellness Center. So at this point, Mara, would you please come up?
Hi there, everybody. Here's some handouts and cards if you're interested. So I was asked to come and talk to you today about carpal tunnel syndrome and how we might work with it at doing body work or other varieties of therapies that we do at Peaceful Spirit. The first thing that I'd like to talk to people about, they are concerned that they might have carpal tunnel syndrome, is whether or not they actually have carpal tunnel syndrome. Because thoracic outlet syndrome makes the same exact pain pattern as carpal tunnel syndrome. And so it's oftentimes misdiagnosed. So because they have the same exact pain pattern, you often have the numbing of the hands, arms falling asleep at night. Thoracic outlet syndrome is the compression of the median nerve up here where it's coming out of the neck. And so it's being compressed by your scalene muscles and other neck muscles as it comes out underneath your rib. Carpal tunnel syndrome is inflammation in the actual carpal tunnel, which is in the wrist. So back in the old days when people actually typed on typewriters and their hands were in this position all day long, or you were working in a factory where you had to do a lot of repetitive movement and your wrist was compressed, which is why you started seeing carpal tunnel syndrome really come forward. Most people today, when they type on keyboards, they have a much flatter wrist situation. So it's oftentimes sleeping or other kinds of repetitive motions that might actually irritate your carpal tunnel. With any inflammation in the body, you want to be thinking about anti-inflammatory actions, like flushing it with ice, doing alternate hot and cold compresses, and some things like that. But the first and foremost is to make sure that the problem isn't really in the wrist. Maybe it's that the nerve is compressed somewhere starting up at the nerve root, coming out of the neck, through the neck muscles, and down through the arm. So one of the best things I've ever learned as a body worker, and the thing that I teach, is that where the pain is doesn't necessarily mean that's where the problem is. Because there's referred pain that happens all the time. You have trigger points in your neck that refer to your head. You've got trigger points in the shoulder that refer to the elbow, and so on through the entire whole body. So when we, I caution people, don't be a hammer that all you see is nails. Right? If you're having a person or yourself that's having a pain problem, it's like, oh, I have a pain here. We focus here, but remember that it could be coming from somewhere else. And so understanding the structure of the body is helpful, meaning where are the bones, the muscles, the nerves, the blood vessels. That can be really, really helpful. But searching or consulting with experts about the idea of what referred pain patterns for a particular area of the body would be a very, very smart idea whenever you're starting to work on yourself or work on anybody else. So I know that was really kind of fast. I have a few minutes more. Does anybody have any specific questions before I go on to the next
So how
part
do
of
you
my
test for
thoracic outlet syndrome?
compared to carpal tunnel? Is there a test to know whether it's one or the other?
There isn't really a test. I mean, there might be in a medical doctor's office, but what I look for is how are the scalenes feeling? The scalenes are the muscles that do head flexion. They contribute a little bit to some rotation, but they predominantly do side flexion of the neck. So if you have range of motion of your head that isn't full range of motion, and you're only able to turn your head, to just a few degrees in either direction, or you can't really flex all the way over, then you feel it pulling, you might have tight neck muscles. It certainly wouldn't hurt to do work in the neck as well. Thoracic outlet syndrome was very common amongst baseball pitchers. So again, thinking about how you or the person you're working with uses their body repetitively will also tell you. If you're not doing anything that's compressing the carpal tunnel, then why would you get carpal tunnel syndrome, right? You'd have to be doing something that's aggravating the wrist to have a direct problem right there, right? So if the person is doing a lot of lifting and twisting, then maybe their problem is coming from somewhere else, just as an example. So examining movement patterns is a really, really important component to working with yourself and with other people, because most of our soft tissue problems come from some level of repetitive movement doing. And it's not just the working on the factory line doing this, right? Or let's use today as an example. We're typing on a computer doing this. Well, we're also driving cars. And then if we sleep like this, and then we're cooking like this, everything that we're doing then is all in front of us like this. Or we have a hobby of needlepoint or knitting, something like that. Everything we're doing is in this position. So it's the culmination of doing all of those things over time that creates the syndrome of all of your muscles in this part of your body becoming short and tight. So if you think about any blood vessels, nerves, muscles, fascia that's right here, we have shrunk it. We've made it smaller. And the portion on the back side of our body, we've overstretched or made long. Because to make this short, that backside has to lengthen, right? When we're flexing like this side gets short, this side gets long. So even if if you watch TV a lot, or you have a TV monitor or a computer monitor, and it's slightly to the left, you're sitting, but your entire life is, 15 degrees to the left. All of this is getting short, and this is staying long because you're repetitively looking in that one direction, right? So you have a movement pattern that sets you up for something else. Does that make sense? So what do you do with that? Put the TV monitor on the other side, if you can. But being mindful of all of the different areas in your world where you're having that same movement pattern. How we get in and out of the car every day, how we get out of bed. We're doing all of this on autopilot. And we tend to then overwork the same groups of muscles in the same exact fashion. And so just as a reminder, muscles are round. Almost all of them are round in the sense that muscles look like if you were to take a bunch of straws and hold them together or put twist ties around them, right? So each of those straws is a fiber in the muscle, or a row of cells. And then those straws are grouped together in bands, and then bands are grouped together to make an entire muscle. So you could be overworking certain straws, right? So the whole muscle isn't affected, but certain straws in the group are, because you always get out of bed like this, or you always get out of the chair like that, or you always get into the car like this, right? And so if you imagine over your lifetime of driving, how many times you would have done that exact action, and then if you drive for a living and you're getting in and out of the car a lot, then you're going to be overworking that one leg and that one set of muscles on that one side of the body. Yes, ma'am.
Because we are on autopilot all the time.
Mhm.
The client comes, who may not have a clue.
That's
what
correct.
they do repetitively. How do you help them discover their own patterns so that you can do the work that you need to do?
Similarly to how I'm describing it to you right now, is for them to, but I think about what kind of work that they do or what their hobbies are, right? And so then I literally put my body in the shape of what it is that they're doing. So I don't know if it'll mess with the camera if I get up and move around, but let's just do it in upper body. Let's pretend I'm a tennis player right now and I'm at the ready. Squatting, I'm ready. I have my racket in my hand, right? So if I play tennis repetitively, I might say to the person, do you do a lot of backhand? Are you always someone who reorients themselves for forehand, right? Well, always backhand. Okay, well now I do that with my body and I show them. So this action, if you play tennis 3 times a week and you do a lot of backhand work, which muscles do you feel right now while you're moving? You know? So by putting my body in the shape of that person's actions and then have them recreate that movement with me, then they're thinking about what muscles are working. That was a great question. And I often I will exaggerate the movement when I'm teaching just to make it obvious to them, you know. Great question. Other questions you might have about carpal tunnel syndrome? So the bottom line is that carpal tunnel syndrome is an impingement of the median nerve. So it's a nerve impingement. And so the question is, why is it impinged and how do you get it unpinged? You know, how do you release it? So it's that idea. So even just educating somebody that you're working on so that they can visualize in their body where that nerve runs along so they can feel it brings a mindfulness to what's going on for them. And then they can use their own thoughts of directing relaxation or feeling micro restrictions in their body, right? Because just thinking a movement to your pinky finger will create a micro movement. This would be a macro movement, right? But if you're just thinking about twitch my pinky, even though you might not see a movement, it's moving. Where something's moving, there can't be spasm. It's a physics thing, right? So if we think about micro movements of areas, it can help the body to relax the holding pattern that might be going on for them. But most importantly, it's our body. We should know how it works and we should know where our stuff is inside. You know, so if we have some understanding of that, then it makes us able to work from the inside out to help ourselves get better. Any other questions or thoughts?
So the median nerve, so for a lay person, there's a tunnel in there that gets constricted, or?
Yeah, so in some of the handouts, if you looked at that, so all of the nerves and structures coming down from the neck and through the forearm, they're going to come through your wrist to your hand. Above that is a retinaculum or a tendinous material to hold everything in. So like, have you ever wrapped your ankle in an ace bandage? What that looks like? Well, that's what the retinaculum looks like on your ankle. I mean, the actual tissue looks like an ankle wrapping. Well, it's that same kind of concept around your hand and your wrist. So it's called the tunnel because everything is filing in through a tunnel to come through on the other side. So it's an inflammation or a restriction of the nerves becoming irritated on the inside of that tunnel. Again, if you think about pinching off an extension cord, like if you bend an extension cord in half, well, now you're bending all your nerves. Your nerves are extension cords from your neck to wherever they go, your whole spinal column. So you're pinching it off. So this side gets hot because it's coming from the source of energy. This side gets cold, numb, tingly, or like insufficient energy coming through because it's pinched off on the other side of the cord. So the lamp won't light up on this end. Yeah. So that's one of the best descriptions of nerves I can give you. And so it's a very tight little space in there. And we're not meant to be doing this all day long. You know, we weren't designed to operate that way. So you don't want to be doing that. Great question. Did I answer your question sufficiently?
You did.
Okay,
That
good.
was very good.
Thanks. Any other questions?
And so what do you do for massage?
Well, for me, if it's true carpal tunnel syndrome where everything is inflamed, I'm not really going to do a massage for the wrist. I'm going to suggest anti-inflammatory types of activities like alternates, hot and cold. Therapy, I might suggest acupuncture. Certainly topical anti-inflammatory would be good too, arnica and those kinds of things. But I always investigate the neck first. I look to release the scalene, release the pecs and pec minor to try to open up the brachial plexus is a bundle of nerves that's right over here, brachial plexus. And so I look to just make sure that there's enough space in there as well, always, and see if that helps to relieve some of the symptoms. So that way you can, diagnose. They can self-diagnose, or if they go to the doctor, it's like, oh, well, it got better with doing this work up here, Sometimes it's both.
Does stretching in the opposite direction assist in that?
Well, that's one of the recommendations in the handouts is doing stretches like this, basically doing the opposite action of this, right? We're trying to open it up. But one of the key things is if something's already irritated and inflamed, we want to be mindful to not overdo it because you're going to just irritate in the other direction. This would almost be like an overstretch because now you're taking something that's irritated and inflamed and expecting it to go beyond its normal, by force, if you're trying to force it. So the key would be to stop doing the repetitive action of this first and keep your arms in a neutral, which is why they often give you wrist brace, something like that, some compressions to help you retrain your hands. Piano players, that would be another person as far as piano technique. Some guitar, violin, those would be another examples of, musicians have a lot of repetitive movement with their hands. So yes, stretching is always a good idea, but stretching mindfully, and working up to it. More isn't always better.
So you took the BioTouch class. Do you think BioTouch could help?
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, I think
Trick question.
Yes. Yes. That's a bigger story. I have 2.5 minutes. Like I was trying to figure out how to be succinct, but I think all energy work has value, period, end of statement, as far as that's concerned. I also will briefly say that the placebo effect wins 40 to 60% of the time in every single double-blind research study conducted. So the placebo effect, you believe it's going to work. It's going to work 40 to 60% of the time. So whether it's the BioTouch that's working or you're healing yourself with your thoughts, who knows and who cares? You get better. Either way you win, and I am personally of the ilk that when you have an intention and somebody else has an intention, even though you don't have to have an intention in BioTouch necessarily, but if you happen to have an intention, while you're working on somebody, you get synergistic results. You get exponential results. And that has been scientifically tested with monks praying around the world in all different kinds of ways, that you get synergistic results when you have groups of people having the same intention projected into the universe. So, yes. Great. Any other questions I can answer for you? Nope. Alrighty then. Are there extra handouts that people don't want that you want to give back to me? I'll be gladly collect them. And
Nice.
yeah,
Perfect.
Good. Thank you for your time. Thanks for having me.
So, all of you still out there in Facebook land?
No, I'm going to be leaving.
Yeah. Thanks, Mara. That was superb.
Excellent.
So,
Thank you very much.
So again, Mara runs the Peaceful Spirit Massage and Wellness Center. There's a few locations in there.
There are. I
Yeah.
have five.
Five locations. She's a busy lady, so we appreciate that you took the time to come share with us.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Anytime, let me know if you ever have any other topics.
Oh yeah, that was perfect.
Yeah,
So,
enjoy your classes.
thanks.
Super fun.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
So you all have the little handout, and so you've all done BioTouch. So we're going to talk a little bit about when we have talks like this. Like that just like gave me a whole different perception when I'm working on somebody. And even though, as we always say, BioTouch is there's no intention. Like you don't have to, but the only intention is you are going to touch. You know, and as you're going to see with the points that we're going to go over, they're exactly what she just said. You know, neck metabolism and local work. And what she talked about, that, and so what is our whole purpose here? It's self-awareness. So when she started talking about that, and she just said, well, all you have to do is think about moving your little finger and it's moving. I was like, what? I mean, you know, you think about that, but when you hear somebody in the professional field talk about that, so what's BioTouch doing? It's just giving a thought to a particular area of the body, and we as practitioners don't have to do anything. Now, somebody like Mara or all of you that are massage therapists, you have a job to do some kind of manipulation, to know anatomy. I mean, the anatomy that Mara knows is way beyond anything that I even want to go learn, you know. But it can be beneficial when you're in there and you're having to do some deep work or manipulate muscles and tendons and fibers and all those kinds of things. But with BioTouch, we're just working on encouraging people to grow in their own self-awareness. It's really about people, their own bodies, to take care of themselves. We as practitioners of BioTouch, we don't do anything. We just touch the points. And as just listening what she said, it was powerful because we're touching, as we teach this all the time, a particular area of the body that hurts. I remember one lady came in when I was first doing BioTouch and she goes, I have peripheral neuropathy, can you help me? And I went, no, I can't, but tell me where it hurts. She says, oh, my feet hurt. Oh, I can take care of that. See, so I didn't need to know peripheral neuropathy, carpal tunnel syndrome. Those are terms that we have to give something. If you go to a doctor or a chiropractor, or you know, if you have insurance, you have to put a code to it.
You have to label it.
Label it. It has to be labeled or you're not going to get paid. Okay, if you don't put that 906352 or F40, whatever the new codes are, you don't get paid. Okay. That's what's nice about learning BioTouch and why we're trying to get it to the masses of people. All you have to do is know, where does it hurt? And what Mara reminded us of, just by going to that area, you're helping the body wake up and make its own corrections, and even finding what it is it needs in the healthcare field to do. We find all the time, people come in here, they'll get BioTouch, and all of a sudden they are sitting in the center here, or they bump into somebody who does massage work, or they finally hear about acupuncture, or they finally decide, you know, I'm going to get that operation, or I'm going to do that chemotherapy. We had a fellow once who had throat cancer, and for years he was not going to deal with it. I'm not going to the doctor. And he came in and he heard a program we did in Hawaii. We're offering it free of charge. And he called up and he said, I don't believe you. He says, I've had this cancer for years, and everywhere I go, the minute I tell them I don't have money, they say, oh, well, we're really sorry, we can't help you. And I remember John told him, no, we're serious. And the guy came in and he was blown away. He came 3-4 times a week for this cancer. And a couple of times he actually was strangling. He couldn't get air at all. And I remember one of the people that lived with us got in their car, drove to the other end of the island, and just did local work on that. And it opened up and relaxed, just like Mara was saying. It just sort of relaxed. And then one day he ended up in the hospital. Had a trach put in, started getting chemotherapy, because BioTouch helped him understand his own body and understand he needed external intervention. And so he had a trach put in, did chemotherapy, did radiation, and within, 6 or 8 months, he was actually the #1 senior racquetball player in the state of Hawaii. And he was still feeding himself with a tube and smoking marijuana through his, doing all his stuff. And actually started to get his saliva back, and they were getting ready to take out the trach. And something happened to his liver. What happened was he had this emotional blowout with some woman that he was hanging out with. And within months, he died. And so even though the cancer and everything was getting better, he was getting ready to have the trach taken out, his saliva glands were working. His body took care of it, and he decided he needed medical intervention. Sometimes people decide, they get BioTouch, they decide they don't want intervention anymore. Sometimes if they come in with what they think is carpal tunnel, all of a sudden, as you're going to see, we do the neck, we do this, the pain goes away. Or maybe it finally gets to the point where they do find a surgeon who knows how to just snip it or do what they do, and then BioTouch helps it heal. If it's inflammation, BioTouch can help that go down. And that's why consistency is important with BioTouch. Consistency. We're not faith healers. We don't slap people on the forehead, and they fall over and all of a sudden, oh my God, I can use my wrist. Now, sometimes that happens,
Sometimes you slap people in the forehead.
Yeah, like we do with you. Wake up! And she goes, oh yes. But usually that doesn't work. So it takes time and consistency. And even what Mara was saying just reminded me of why we're trying to get this into the family structure. Because it's, I just talked to a lady the other day who called from some town, wants the manual. She's been having this eye problem. She's been taking antibiotics. She's been taking this. It's sort of getting better, but not. And over the telephone was able to encourage her that all it would take would be 3 to 5 minutes. And of course, all she's got is her husband. I said, just tell him, if he doesn't do a few minutes, he's not getting dinner, and then practice on him but don't promise him anything. Just say you're going to do the points. You're not going to cure anything. Just say, let me do some points. I need to practice. And I guarantee you he's going to come around and go, oh, wow, I know nothing's wrong with me, but would you do that again? Because he's waking up to his body. He's going to work on her. And it's going to be interesting to see whether or not somebody who's never had the technique can just do that local work. So that's why we're trying to get it into family structure. These little workshops are really beneficial for that. And it's nice that we can, do it over Facebook, and then we can post it, and then people can pull it up on our website and just know, okay, I've been diagnosed with carpal tunnel, or I've self-diagnosed myself. What can I do? And as you've all learned before, there's no levels. Everybody's effective the very first time they do it. And as I'm sitting here saying that, I'm like, I'm missing my sidekick here. She missed me last month, and I'm missing her this time. It's like, where the hell is she? I'm having to do the whole show. Hi, Bev. So it's nice that the whole thing exists. We just had another guy call today, and he just wanted to learn the technique. So, well, just download it. It's $18. Download it, learn it, call us if you have a question. He says, I can do that? So it's hard for people to understand that there's a technique out there that is simple, effective, anybody can do it, and it's incredibly accessible. And we don't turn anybody away. I mean, if they don't have the $18 or the $29, fine, here, we'll send it to you. It's not like we make a hell of a lot of money off of these things. So the goal is to get it into every family and to have pockets of people doing this and sharing it with one another. So any questions about that? I mean, you all know the regular spiel, so we don't need to go too much into it about what it is and those kinds of things. And also, I was thinking today, if you saw Monday's show, we talked about how does BioTouch unlock happiness, and how we've been saying recently, it's our birthright to be healthy, happy, and loved. And after we did that show, all of a sudden I'm stumbling on Facebook posts. I read something from Krishnamurti, the Dalai Lama. All of a sudden I'm being inundated with this concept of happiness and how it really is. It's nothing you have to really, we talk about the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of health. That we already have that. So we still, even though birthright to be healthy and happy, that's there. So we have diseases. So we have a pain. So we maybe are angry. But it doesn't take away that our birthrights to be healthy and happy and loved. And BioTouch, in what Mara was saying, is a repetitive change of thought. When you take those two fingers and you touch them and that bottom of their breastbone, boom, something happens. And this second point too, if you start looking at this, you know, in all kinds of different ancient writings and teachings, and even that picture that we have of the Egyptian hieroglyph where that second point is being touched. So for tens of thousands of years, these points have been practiced. There's a repetitiveness. Norman just sort of reawakened it for the Western mind, and it's through the Western mind that we're going to get this around the world. But it's everybody's. It's not a Western technique. It's not an Eastern technique. It's not an Egyptian technique. It's a humanity technique. And it really reminds us that we are loved, that we are happy, and that we are healthy. That's what we are. And if we keep doing that touching enough times, we'll finally believe that consciously. We'll make that our life. That's what Mara was saying. So if I'm looking at my computer always like this, what does she say to do? Put it over here. So if I'm in pain all the time, if I just do a little BioTouch and I give the attention, Louis used to say, you're just lovingly paying attention to that area. And I do that enough times, it just, the self-awareness changes. It remembers, oh, I am loved. I am healthy. I still got a pain, but I'm still healthy. I am happy. I don't have to go pay somebody to give that to me. I don't have to take 20 million more workshops or eat wheatgrass juice. If I want to do that, that's fine. But you can be happy, you know, drinking Jack Daniels. I've tested that. It works. So it was just interesting how that whole concept after we did that show is just flooding into me, and just again gets me really excited about sharing BioTouch, and really excited that you all took time out of your day and your week to come here and hang out to again practice it again, to do a few more points, to just lock it in that BioTouch can be effective. And like Mara said, it doesn't matter what energy modality you're doing. You know, the only difference between this and any of those other ones is, out of all the ones I've learned and been exposed to, this really is the simplest in relation to intention, levels, the ability to do it, the masses of society being able to do it without having to understand concepts like chi and ki and chai and cho and ji and ja, you know, all these concepts that sort of freak people out. Or energy modalities where you just go like this and, can you feel that? Can you feel that? You know, I remember going in these classes, right? They say, all right, now get your hands going. Now, can you feel that? I just felt like, wow, stupid if you say no. So everybody goes, oh yeah, I feel it, man. Oh yeah. You know, and so I remember one energy thing I just went to and I said, I don't feel it. And the guy looks at me and goes, well, that's crazy. Of course you do. I said, no, I don't. So he came up and he did all this stuff. He said, now, do you feel that? And I went, no, I don't feel that. He says, well, that's a big ego trip. I said, yeah, I am on a big ego trip, you know. So I don't have anything to hide. I'm on an ego trip. I don't want to feel. It's not important for me to feel that. People ask me all the time, what'd you feel when you worked on me? Did you get information? And I watch my ego. It wants to say, well, yeah, I did, you know. Let me tell you what I found out, you know. BioTouch has humbled me. You know, it's really allowed me to say, I don't need to know any of that stuff. I don't need to be different than you or the homeless person or the immigrant or whoever. I can just be a person with all my crap that I have and still be able to do BioTouch. And that excites me, that there's a technique out there for all of humanity, and we can call it an energy modality because what else are we going to call it? And of course, in the next 10, 15 years, they'll prove that there is such a thing as energy modalities and biofield therapies and all that. But we don't have a lot of time to wait for the research. What we have to do is get the technique out to the people. So that's why we're doing these workshops and why we have the classes. And so what we're going to do is we're going to teach you how to do it. So if you pull your, any questions, comments about?
I was
Yes.
just going to say, Paul,
You
there
were?
already is that research out there in some areas about how it
Yes.
helps with stress and helps bring your blood pressure down, all that scientific. I mean, there's already some research that proves that it's
For BioTouch?
Yeah.
Oh,
For
yeah.
BioTouch.
Yeah.
That is beneficial.
Right.
You know,
So
in
we
all these
actually can
areas.
say research has shown da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then we don't have to give all the counterindications at the end. Yes, but you could have da-da-da-da-da-da-da and die, you know. Blow out your liver, blow out your kidney, da-da-da-da-da. No, BioTouch just works, and there's no side effects. And you can't create a problem. Somebody asked me that the other day, this woman that wanted to work on the eyes. She was worried that if she worked on the eyes, the other eye would get weirded out or something. You know, BioTouch does not create a problem. If the body goes through something, it's because it needed to. Well, we're not doing anything. We're just giving your body attention for itself. So when I got worked on and I had my back problem worked on, and the same thing could happen if we're going to work on carpal tunnel. You might start working on the neck and you're going to work on the arm and that area where the inflammation is. Well, if that neck starts to move, it's going to feel whacked out. Sometimes it's discomforting when things adjust themselves. You know, it might be some cervical vertebrae that are out of alignment and all of a sudden they start to come into alignment. Well, if what Mara's saying is true, if I've been looking this way the whole time and now my neck's automatically, BioTouch, what's nice about it is the body will adjust itself without manipulation. I've seen it and I've experienced it. That just by getting BioTouch, the body begins to realign itself. And then if you get a massage or a chiropractor or things like that, they can help it along, but it will do it without that. Well, imagine feeling that happen. It's like, oh man, this hurts. I mean, I was 6 months. I couldn't sit, stand, lay down, you know, whiskey didn't work, aspirin didn't work because the body was shifting, you know, and one day when I stood up, I was sort of dizzy because my eyes were higher. You know, and all the shoulder stuff came back, you know, and so just on a maintenance level to do BioTouch. And so things like somebody that gets carpal tunnel, that might just be a trigger, as Mara was saying, to bring them in, to take care of some other problems that are dealing in their neck, their shoulders, you know, how they're, you know, what repetitive action they're doing. But we don't ask them and analyze them like Mara would. She's a professional. That's what people pay her to do. Here in the center, we just work on you and listen to your story. And people will tell you, you know, well, you know, as you worked on that, it reminded me how I sit cockeyed. I mean, that was perfect about the computer. If it's just a little bit off, it's like, wow, it doesn't take much to whack us out of alignment. It doesn't take much to bring us back into alignment. Just a simple light touch. So, if you got your workbook, again, if you'll notice on the front page, we talked about, that's a little analysis that we found about carpal tunnel, you know, a little building on what Mara was talking about. Okay. And then we'll bring up our mannequin. So we'll go through the greeting first. You should all know this by now.
All right, the greeting. As you all probably know, I'm sure you do, that the greeting is the first thing you do before you do any BioTouch at all. And you always begin with your dominant hand. If you have to be ambidextrous, whatever that word is, you just pick one hand and use it throughout the whole greeting. So you're going to go below the breastbone to the soft area just below the breastbone. That is point 1. And you're going to hold it for 6 to 8 seconds with light butterfly touch. And point 2 It's going to be, you're going to find the big bone. Guess we'll untie her here. You're going to find the big bone, and then you're going to move over 1 to 1.5 inches to the left, and hold again for 6 to 8 seconds. That is the greeting. Now, if you are working on a recipient or client and you get interrupted, you have to leave the room, just go back, do the greeting, and continue where you left off. Did you want me to go ahead and do the neck, or did you want to do metabolism next? I think it's metabolism.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing we do is metabolism. Remember, it helps the body get rid of what it doesn't need and assimilate.
For a top is off a little bit. Facebook might block you for that. There you go.
You know, it's funny, for years we never had a bathing suit on her at all. And then somebody said, oh, you need to put a bathing suit on her. What? I never even thought of that. Like the charts, you know, people, oh, you can't have those charts. It's people's nipples showing. It's a picture. It's one-dimensional picture. So when we went into a high school once, we put little bras on. Okay, is that better? Okay. So metabolism helps the body get rid of what it doesn't need and assimilate what it needs. So those things like inflammation and if it's building up calcium, whatever that, you know. So metabolism we do a lot. Okay, it's basically, remember now, the first set is those muscles in front of the large muscle. Okay, I forgot, Marilyn, this is the first time you've taken a class. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's all right, keep going.
I know. So step 1, 3 points in front of that large muscle. Okay, now we're doing a matching fire. That's the same point on either side of the body. 1 and 1 is just above the collarbone, in front of the large muscle. 2 and 2 are halfway up the neck, in front of the muscle. And 3 and 3 is at the top of the neck, in front of the large muscle. Okay? You can do that once or twice. That's step 1. Okay? Step 2, you're looking for the hold point, right? That's on the left breast. And it's basically at that level where the nipples would be on a U or on a mannequin. It's also 1/3 the way up the breastbone and over 1 inch to 1.5 inches. And you're going to hold there. The hold point means that point stays stationary. Okay? While you're going to touch points 1 through 3 is all we need on the back. Okay? So we're holding there. Is that viewed in there?
Yes.
Okay. And we're going to touch points 1 through 3 on the back. And what we're looking for is that dotted line, which remember we call that the breakover when it comes into the spine. That's the bottom rib that comes into the spine. That's what we call the breakover. And our reference point is there as we go 1 to 2 inches above that on the left spine muscle. And remember, you're below the shoulder blade. Point 2 is directly across on the right spine muscle. Point 3 is, here's the breakover again, is 2 to 3 inches below the breakover. Now, point 4 isn't necessary, but remember, point 4, if you do that on the left spine muscle, is for blood sugar problems. So, good or not is up to you for this particular condition. Okay, so if I did twice in the front here, I would do twice back here. Okay? Then we'll do the neck. Because remember what she said about the neck, a lot of that times that could be the cause of the problem.
Okay, here we go again. All right. The neck, there's three points to the neck. The first one is halfway up the neck alongside the large muscle. Holding again 6 to 8 seconds. Point 2 is the indentations at the base of the skull alongside the large muscle. And then point 3 is at the bottom of the neck, again alongside the large muscle. Now you can repeat these points, and it doesn't really matter what order you do them in, as long as you do points 1, 2, and 3. And then you can also do sweeps going from either direction. Okay, any questions?
So like Mara said, now we're going to the nitty-gritty of carpal tunnel. So what she talked about is how we deal with local kinds of problems. So here's the issue of the problem, carpal tunnel. That's what the person tells you they have. That's what they've been diagnosed with, or they've self-diagnosed themselves. So they have pain, inflammation, something in this wrist. And also I've worked on a lot of people who came in with carpal tunnel, and after you did a lot of this neck work, their problem went away. Okay? You know, they're wearing that wrist, and all of a sudden you start working on this area. So how do we work on this whole area the way that Mara talked about? So remember, in BioTouch, we teach in the beginning class that all those nerves come off the spine and go to particular areas of the body. Okay, and just for our purpose here, we know, because of that little chart we have, that all the nerves to the upper extremities come off of this area. That's the basic thing that we teach. So Mara said the same thing. That's those nerves. And somehow those nerves could be impinging, could be tight, could be locked up, could be that, you know, repetitive action that's actually creating the symptom in that wrist. Okay? Even if it is carpal tunnel, quote unquote, we still would work on that nerve train, because that nerve train goes from the spine to the particular area you're working on, goes back to the spine, up to the brain, through all that communication of all those cells to heal that particular area that the pain is for people. How that works, what it is that particular person has, is none of our concern, because we would do the same thing regardless of how they got the problem or any other diagnostics that they've got. And here's how we work on a local problem. 2 fingers on the problem, always. That's the first thing you do, is you put 2 fingers on the problem. So we're dealing with carpal tunnel. I want to put 2 fingers somewhere on that wrist. Could be here, could be under there. It doesn't matter. Put 2 fingers on the problem, and you put the other 2 fingers at the corresponding area on the spine where those nerves go to. And so we know that those nerves somewhere in here. Doesn't matter, I don't have to be exact. I might hold the 2 fingers here on that pained area, and maybe I'll just sweep down that spine, down to the big bone. And I might do that a couple of times, and if I do it slow enough, maybe my fingers are going to drag in a certain place. Or maybe I'm going to feel heat in a certain place. Or maybe, with my intuition, I'm just going to want to stop at a certain place. That might be the exact nerve that could be affecting this problem. You don't have to know which one it is. Just listen to yourself as you're doing the points. Then once you've done that, and you hold that there for a while, then you can bring these fingers from the area of the spine down to the local problem. And there's different ways to do that. You can just sweep slowly, which is just exactly what Mara was talking about. Now, somebody like Mara and a lot of you who've learned anatomy, you would know where the nerves are exactly, but it doesn't matter, because the body's getting its own information. And you're just sort of helping it pay attention to the problem, both the symptom and maybe the reason the problem's there. I might take both hands, right, and come down. And remember, the sweeps are slow and deliberate, and they're always on the body. That's one of the things we do, is slow and deliberate sweeps. And then I work locally around the problem. I can go through it. I can touch right on the problem, this way, or the underside here. I could sweep across the problem, and it doesn't matter which direction. I could go this way. I could go this. I might do this. I might do this. So there's numerous things I can do just to work around the local problem. So what's it doing? It's just, in other words, you're just paying attention to the area that they have the discomfort. And so just like Mara was saying, whatever's happening, the brain's getting that and saying, oh, okay, we want to correct this problem. And because we're touching right on the skin, there's a real message. You know, this kind of stuff here, maybe that's happening, but when you touch somebody on a particular problem, they know they're being touched. This is about 50-50 perception. Doesn't mean it's not happening, it just means perceptible to the average human being. And then maybe more here. Then you just sort of can take off to do whatever comes to you, this whole area that you want to work on. Right? That's how simple it really is. Any questions? Because we're going to practice. Okay? What are you catching?
I was trying to get a mosquito.
Yeah. So we're going to say goodbye to all our Facebook people. Bye. And we're going to go practice.
He's gonna be messy because he got me at least twice.